panorama of speed, color, drama, and excitement. The American Sports Cavalcade.
Joe Amato won his 4th Winston Top Fuel Championship in 1991, but fell to Kenny Bernstein at the Winter Nationals just 3 weeks ago. John Force won his 2nd consecutive funny car title last year, but ran into rookie Jim Epler at Pomona, and his day was over, a day Jim Epler and family will never forget. Scott Jeffreyon has taken the wheel of the dominating Dodge this season, but former boss Warren Johnson had his number in round 2 at the season opener. They're all here in Phoenix this weekend, champions and challengers alike, for the Motorcraft Ford Nationals at Firebird International Raceway. Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Evans. This is the championship Top Fuel dragster of Joe Amato. These are the men that have helped wrench him to 4 Winston Top Fuel championships, one more than any other man or woman has ever captured. Joe, the season 3 weeks ago at Pomona didn't get off quite the way you wanted, but still an exciting race with Kenny Bernstein. Yeah, it was a real close race. When you lose by 9,000 of a second on reaction time, it's a tough way to lose, but we were 1 round ahead of where we were last year, so we're off to a pretty good start, and the car is really running good. We ran 3.489 runs out there. I mean, and we've got a fast car here. Out of 18 national events, how many will the champion have to win, do you think? 4 or 5 or 6, depending on how many runner-ups you get. I mean, it comes down to rounds and how many other people do it. I mean, every round is real important, 200 points, and it's a long season yet. Go get them. Thank you. Earlier, we talked to some of Joe's competitors on their thoughts about his 5th championship. When you've got that kind of experience with Tim Richards and the crew and the driver he is and everything it takes, and 4 world championships behind you, you're not going to beat them in 1 race. It takes the whole season to do it. They'll be very hard. They're an awfully good race team. They're a class act, but there's a lot of good race teams out here this year, and I think they're going to have their hands full. No, I think we get a little sick of seeing him win the championship, but you know, that happens. When we won it 4 times in our funny car, people got a little sick of that too. So obviously, we all want to knock him off, and he's going to be tough, though. You know, he wears the title quite well, and that's a shame. Did you love Prudhomme's comment? He wears the title well, and that's a shame. That was vintage snake. Well, that's the Top Fuel story. For funny cars, well, let's go to Brocky Yates. Well, Steve, a big pair of drag racing slicks like that carried John Force to his 2nd consecutive world championship in funny car. But I'll tell you what, things are going to get maybe a little bit tougher this year. Started out at Pomona, John, with a young guy coming down from the Pacific Northwest, Jim Epler, and really waxed you pretty good in the finals. Big surprise. Well, you got to give credit to him and his crew chief. I didn't even know who he was. I was kind of more interested in his kids. It was a great show, but he took us out, and that goes to show you anybody can do it. Well, this season seems to be getting real tough. Competition continues to escalate every year in funny car. Quicker, faster, stronger teams. Well, they are, and I'll tell you, one of the guys that's laying back and their trouble with problems is Cruz kid driving for Larry Miner, that McDonald's car. You know they got big bucks down there. They got Lee Beard. That car is going to be tough. He's the one we're watching right now. Okay, well, there are a bunch of guys in the funny car that are going after John, and I'll tell you what, we checked around and found out what they have to think about the man. He's pretty good on everything he does out here, and he's tough to beat. Epler's looking real good now, but I think over the long haul, John Force is going to be right back up there, and he's going to be the one to chase again. Well, our goal is to be consistent and not try and go for low ET. If we can stay running in the 20s and not hurt a bunch of parts and stay within our budget, I think we'll have a good shot at it. Well, I'll tell you what, if those guys have anything to do with it, a 3rd championship is not going to be that easy for John Force. And now, for more on the Pro Stocks, let's go to our pal, Big Daddy Don Garland.
Thank you, Brock. I'm in the Wayne County Speed Shop pit, and this is the Dodge driven by Scott Jeffreyon. This car has dominated NHRA Pro Stock racing for the last couple of years. Now, in the first outing at Pomona, Scott Jeffreyon did fair. He was defeated in the 2nd round by his former boss, Warren Johnson. But he got him off the line. It was down course that Scott had a little bit of trouble. Now, earlier, we talked to the competition of the Pro Stock drivers, and they have other plans for this car to stop the domination in 1992.
All last year, that Dodge was rampaging all over this country, and this year I hope it's us, because we've been running well, and I hope we can last all year like that.
Well, it's going to probably be difficult for everybody out there. I mean, there's so many cars running extremely close right now. It's not going to be a 1 or 2 car battle as it was last year by any stretch of the imagination. I see probably 6, maybe as many as 8 cars being able to battle this thing out towards the end.
Well, Scott, obviously you want to keep this car's winning ways. What are your plans for 1992 to accomplish that?
I'm just going to go out here and do a, real good job, I think, for Mopar and Dodge. And I think it's just a matter of building some chemistry amongst our personalities on the team here in the beginning, and I think everything will gel just fine after that.
Well, thank you, Scott. Well, there you heard it, Steve.
All right, thank you, Big Daddy and Brock Yates. Enough talk already. Let's make some noise. No machines in the world make more of it than Top Fuel Direction. This is round number 2 here at the Motorcraft Ford Nationals. Eddie Hill versus Gene Snow. So you see Gene Snow. He's been running fairly well. He had a 4-second run 3 weeks ago in Pomona. But the man everybody is talking about here is in the bright yellow car, Eddie Hill. He did not qualify in Pomona, just asked crew chief Buzzy Carter. But they came in here, the first racer down the racetrack, Don Garland, and set low a lap time at 493, and it still holds.
That's right, and he's going to be very tough to beat. Snow has not run all that well here so far, but you know how it is with a snowman. He is capable of stepping up at any moment, but he's always wanting to fiddle with that thing and make changes, and of course the crew hates that. Of course, I'm sure that Hill hopes that now he's made some kind of a change on it.
Well, in round number 1, Eddie Hill defeated Kim LaHaye. As we said, he's the #1 qualifier, low ET in the event. Gene Snow, well, he got by a blower-banging Ed McClelland in round number 1 to get to this point. And there you see Snow. He knows, Brock Yates, that he's got to go for a shot here. Hill's not going to be easy to beat.
Well, yeah, Eddie and the crew came in here very disappointed from Pomona, so they've got a lot at stake to prove that they're up amongst the top contenders of Top Fuel, and it is much question that they aren't. But Pomona was a disaster for them.
Good race. Gene Snow with an advantage. Gene Snow upsets Eddie Hill. 5.05 seconds to a 5.08. A heck of a race. Speed of 275 miles per hour. Let's have another look at this one. It's certainly worthy of it, Don Garland.
Well, it certainly looks like Hill was on the ball as they leave the starting line. A slight advantage to Hill, but Snow was right there. You know, as they move down course and we see Gene Snow's car just pull out just a little bit, it makes me think that maybe Hill was not taking Snow seriously and didn't have enough horsepower.
Let's go to Brock Yates down at the far end.
Well, Eddie, a real close race against Gene in 08 to an 05, and as low qualifier, you got to be a disappointed man, but a great show, great drag race in any case.
Well, yeah, that was a very close run. I couldn't even tell for sure who won. I knew it had to be about that close. Gene's an awful good friend of mine. I'm glad to see him win one. That was a tough one for us after coming in #1, but evidently something went wrong. We'll have to go see what it was.
Your little prior in the top end, is that what happened?
It just felt a little weak all the way through. I don't know what the problem was. We'll just have to go back and look at the computer and figure it out.
Well, it was a great show anyway. Congratulations on low ET of the meet and qualifying anyway.
Thank you. We sure enjoyed that part.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Eddie Hill out, but still low elapsed time of the event. Well, this is the pit area of the man John Force says he fears the most over the course of this coming season, the Cruz Pedregon camp. We'll be seeing them up against Johnny Weston's Funny Car round 2. Stay with us.
Back in Phoenix at the Motorcraft Ford Nationals, where we've already, Steve Evans, seen a major upset with Gene Snow downing Eddie Hill. And we've got upset potential here as well with Doug Herbert, who ran so well at Pomona against Joe Amato.
Oh, absolutely. You're looking at 24-year-old North Carolinian Doug Herbert, who unofficially is the quickest driver the sport has ever seen at 4.88 seconds. He's in the mail-order speed equipment business, the Hugger sportswear car. He'll be up against, well, this guy needs no introduction. He's the 4-time champ, Joe Amato from Old Forge, Pennsylvania. Now, even though Herbert 3 weeks ago set that 488, Amato put him out of competition in round number 2. I think the young man is still stinging from that.
But you know, Amato can't forget that 488 at Pomona. That is a very, very strong run, and he knows that Herbert's got that down in that bag of tricks somewhere.
Now, Amato only qualified 1 position ahead of Doug Herbert, a 498 to a 499, but that was a couple of days ago. The track, the weather, a lot of things are different than they were then. Amato in the near lane, the 4-time champ. Herbert. Amato loses traction, tries to stay with it, finally has to throw in the towel, and Herbert gets a bit of revenge over the Winter Nationals at 5:01. 269 miles an hour. Amato slowing to a 6:16. Let's go to Don Garlitz back at the starting line with crew chief Tim Richards to see if he knows what happened.
Well, Tim, what happened? You always get that clutch just right.
Well, we were worried about this tailwind we got here. We find we lose about 450 pounds of downforce, and we were up as far as we could go the whole race here, and I was definitely worried about it going in here, but sometimes you win, sometimes you don't.
I know what you're talking about. Wind always bugged me.
Oh, yeah, the wind is a big factor when it comes up. Thanks.
Thank you.
And the wind is indeed up. Let's have another look. Over the far lane by about 2,000ths of a second, Doug Herbert was off the mark first. Joe Amato had a lot of clutch in the car. You could see it dangling the front wheels ever so slightly. Right there, when another stage came in, it was just too much for the racetrack here in Firebird. Maybe any racetrack.
Well, Joe, it's just one of those deals. You lay down 5,000 odd horsepower, and they're bound to get away from you once in a while.
Yeah, the wind is blowing pretty good here, and it might, make the track. It got a little hotter, and the car left real good. Had the wheels in the air a little extra hard, and got out in the middle and just started rattling the tires and blew them loose.
There's nothing you can do then.
There's nothing. Once you blow the tires loose, I tried to pedal it back one time, but then he was making such a good move, I gave up on him. It was hopeless.
Well, great drag race. Congratulations. We know we'll see you soon.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
All right, Joe Amato on the trailer. That's rare in round number 2. All right, the next pair both had huge problems at Pomona 3 weeks ago. This man, Michael Brotherton, ended up on his top when the parachute failed through an engine fire, and the car could not come back. It was too badly damaged. Don Prudhomme would have loved to have been in round 1, 2, 3, or 4. He did not even qualify after great testing numbers during the off-season, but Prudhomme has come back with a vengeance. In fact, he's qualified back round 1. He ran a 4.94 last time. All the Snake has to do is repeat that, and he probably will go to the final 4. Michael Brotherton, brand new on the Gerald Gwynn racing team out of Plantation, Florida. Replaces Frank Hawley in the cockpit of that car. A guy with a lot of experience, ran his own cars, crew chief for Gene Snow. He's good. Done a good choice.
You're right, Steve. And Prudhomme really stepped up in that first round with that 494 because he only qualified number 14 with a 515. He was getting a little bit nervous. Maybe he wasn't going to qualify at this race, too.
Absolutely right. He made it in the very last session yesterday. Prudhomme in the near lane against Brotherton. And it is Prudhomme who smokes the tires even earlier than Amato. That has got to give him some concern over the racetrack, particularly that near lane. Brotherton, 499 at 281 miles per hour. But the one thing Michael's going to have to look at, his reaction time. It was just terrible as compared to Prudhomme.
Okay, here's an interesting pair. That is Jim Head, and he will go against Pat Austin. We know about his transition from top alcohol funny cars to into top fuel competition. Of course, he's still doing well there in the funny cars as well. So this is a dual effort on Cat's part. Jim had an interesting story, always innovating, always trying. Lost to Bernstein in a close race at the Winter Nationals, and he is always tough, Big Daddy.
Yes, he is. He's subject to run a 4-second run at any moment.
In fact, he lost with the 4 at Pomona. Pat Austin, Tacoma, Washington, qualified number 2 here. Only Eddie Hill was quicker at 496. And earlier today, in round number 1, he met up with Kenny Bernstein. Bernstein, like Prudhomme, was troubled in qualifying, barely made the field in the 15th spot. So Austin was, well, a favorite to say the least when the 2 squared off earlier today. Now watch Austin. He will leave the starting line first and never relinquish that lead. Even though Bernstein certainly upped his performance for qualifying, it wasn't enough. It was Austin at 499, a big speed of 287.90 miles per hour. Now his opponent in round number 2, Jim Head, he had a interesting and rather scary first round encounter. He was up against Corey McClelland. Now watch Head's car in the far lane. The huge left slick explodes off the wheel thanks to good driving and a couple of parachutes that kept the car straight. Jim Head remained upright, but some damage was done to the car, especially when a piece of tire hit the wing and just ripped part of the tubing away, Don Garlitz.
They got a lot of work to do in a case like that. Thank goodness there's welders at the track to take care of those situations.
So here's the Head car in the near lane repaired and hopefully repaired properly, Brock.
With that wild color scheme of Jim Head's over in the far lane, the Pat Austin automobile in the Castro livery in the lane that so far has been by far the most successful here.
Identical reaction times. Head gives a great effort, but it's not quite enough. Pat Austin, 5 seconds flat. He too falls off a bit from the first round, 286 miles per hour. Jim Head at 514 at 268 miles per hour, shutting it off just a little bit early. So, Big Daddy, let's have another look.
Well, young Pat Austin takes a very slight starting line advantage, not enough to really make any difference. The real difference came in that Walt Austin prepared engine. As they moved down course, you can just see the car developing more power every step of the way, and a very nice victory for young Pat Austin.
So that sets up the final four here in Phoenix. It will be Pat Austin versus Michael Brotherton. Brotherton has the lane choice with his 499. The other pairing will see Doug Herbert up against Gene Snow. And, of course, Herbert has the lane choice of 501 to Snow's 505 from the previous round. Again, let's go to Brock at the far end.
Well, Pat, at 08, pretty stout crosswind and everything, kind of looking a little cranky, but I'm sure you're going to want to step that up a little bit.
Yeah, I think you just got to take it round by round and you know, give it the performance that it needs to get by that round. And we thought that I think we plan on running, you know, like a low 5.0. That's a little bit off pace, but I think the track is causing that. We're getting into a little bit of a dust storm here, and that's got something to do with it.
Okay, go get him.
Hey, we're gonna. Thanks.
Onward and upward.
Hey, Brock, find some shelter down there, will you, buddy? It sounds like the soundtrack from Lawrence of Arabia. The way it's blowing, nobody's going to have to worry about ironing that flag. Stay with us. We'll be back to Phoenix.
This is the Doug Herbert Top Fuel Dragster that crew chief Jim Brissett and his pals are working on getting ready to go against Gene Snow in the semifinals here at Firebird International Raceway, the Motorcraft Ford Nationals. But right now, along with Steve Evans and Big Daddy Don Garlett, we're ready for round 2 action of funny cars.
And it pits two drivers who are always glad to make it as far as the second round. They're not real deep in parts and sponsorship. Richard Hartman, the Insanity car, up against Whit Bazemore. Don, their spare parts would fit on a corner of Cruz Pedregon's trailer.
They could haul them all around in a small chaparral trailer if need be.
That's right, or a wheelbarrow.
Well, you know, Whit Bazemore really represents a great sportsman-like component of the sport. Used to be a photographer, loved drag racing, got into funny cars, and now gets a little bit of sponsorship from Permatech is going to help him along.
And of course, Richard Hartman came to the race Prosser-owned car from the now defunct Nick Bonnet-Font team last year that ran the entire season. Hartman hopes to run the entire season, but it's going to take good performances like Phoenix here and some prize money to carry him down the trail. Good start. Bazemore fades. Something happens to Bazemore's car. Hartman having a little bit of control problem in all of this wind, but a 563, 271 miles an hour will put them into the final four. And the cause of Bazemore's problem is laying right out on the racetrack, a broken supercharger belt. Let's go to Don.
Virgil, it slowed down a little bit from the first round.
We softened the clutch up a little bit, figuring there's dust on the track, and we didn't want to spin the tires. This is only our 9th run together as a team, and we're really sorting through parts, and we finally got it to where we can make a tuning decision, and it works. But we did what we wanted to do.
Well, let's hope you got more information this time.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
Well, our next pairing will feature the sport's newest darling and the father of those darling twin girls, Jim Epler, who just moved from the Pacific Northwest down to Florida, the Black Diamond Racing team. Epler will be up against Gary Densham.
And based on his major upset of Fords at the Winter Nationals, he is the current points leader.
Gary Densham, one of the rising young superstars of our sport. He's just waiting for that break, but this is the time he may not get it. Epler is really a very strong funny car at this point.
And a very strong burnout. Let's go to Brock at the far end.
This wind is really getting cranky, though. Did it bother the car at all? The pass looked pretty good.
No, that was our straightest pass of the weekend for a full pass, and the wind's not bothering us. Just, I think the heat's bothering us more than anything.
Well, go get him. Congratulations on getting the semis.
Thank you.
A little one that bothered me if I was Richard Hartman. He hit every wall on the circuit last year. There's Mike Clover, the crew chief for Jim Epler, who formerly worked for Don Prudhomme, is given a lot of credit by Epler and everyone else for giving this car this nice, consistent quality about it, Don Garlett.
Well, Clover was one of the coolest crew chiefs around.
And Jim's glad to have him. They beat Gary Clapshaw in round number 1. Gary Densham has been at this funny car thing just about as long as anybody. A school teacher, industrial arts department, bellflower. He and his students build about everything he has. The car, the truck, the trailer, you name it. They are pretty self-sufficient. So it'll be Densham looking for the upset over Epler. Epler right now with Pomona 3 weeks ago in this race here has got, what, 5 consecutive win lights going for him. This could be his 6th. Epler taking his time. Densham is up there ready to race. Funny car, round number 2. Winner goes to the final 4.
Epler's definitely the favorite here, wouldn't you say, Steve?
Oh, I sure would. But look at Densham out in front of me. Densham close to the center line. was Gary Densham. Oh, my Lord, Densham with a 5:43 to Epler's 5:40. That can only mean one thing. Densham won it right off the starting line. Let's have another look.
And there we see it, Steve. Watch them move. It doesn't look like much, but let me tell you, in drag racing, that little bit of gain that Densham made on the starting line made the difference at the end because he ran 0.03 of a second slower, but it got him there first based on starting line reaction. If you snooze, you lose.
And these numbers will show you how a 5:43 can beat a 5:40. If you have a better reaction time, you do the math, the total margin of victory, 17 thousandths of a second. That's a close one. Brock Yates has Gary.
Well, Gary, 43 in this kind of conditions, getting a little windy out here, and you move on to the semis.
Oh, boy, I tell you, we're so happy I can't see straight. My guys have worked so hard over the winter, and the sponsors stayed behind us, and it just feels great to be here. It's a great year so far, I'm here to tell you.
Congratulations. Good. Anything, everything looks dry and clean, no problem.
Everything looks great, boy. We just need to step it up a little bit more again, and we'll be happy campers, I'll tell you.
You go get them. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Gary Densham having a fine day. This is a bit of Michael Brotherton. They're having a pretty good day, too. They'll have lane choice over Pat Austin in the top two Final Four coming up a little bit later. Stay with us here in Phoenix, Arizona. We will be right back. There is a huge crowd here at the Motorcraft Ford Nationals, a record, in fact. But for people around the country who can't be here in person, they can find out everything they need to know by calling NHRA Now, presented by Castrol GTX. It's a 24-hour drag racing information line with the latest info on your favorite drivers and events. Just call 1-900-468-NHRA. You'll be billed by your local phone company. It's time now to continue funny car round number 2. And there is the two-time Winston champion, John Forrest. And there you're on board with him. You see the big stovepipe in there to relieve pressure should he have a blower explosion, not blow the body off of the car. Right, Don?
You know, in my opinion, Steve, that's one of the trickiest innovations that Austin Coyle has come up with in a long time. Those bodies are very expensive, but more than that, it is a safety feature for the driver.
Now listen to this. His opponent, Tom Hoover, has the lane choice over Forrest. Forrest qualified number 1, picked up a $4,000 bonus. Don't worry about the body coming up over there. That's a normal routine. But he fell off in round number 1, and Hoover picked up tremendously with a 5.26 second elapsed time. He's got lane choice and has selected the far side. That's been the favorite so far in elimination. John Forrest, of course, well, the best-known funny car driver in the sport right now out of Yorba Linda, California. Austin Coyle is wanted crew chief. He's got everything it takes to win another championship. All he needs is that hard-to-find racing luck.
Well, I'll tell you what, he's probably very concerned about that 5.26 at Hoover turn because Hoover runs a conservative operation, and you can bet he wasn't blowing up parts to do that.
Oh, absolutely not. So, John Forrest up against Tom Hoover here in round number 2, the Motorcraft Ford Nationals, the winner to go to the Final Four. Look at Hoover. Hoover absolutely trounces John Forrest. You have done that. A 5.32 to a 5.46. At the starting line, Don is with a crew chief who has to be scratching his head.
Well, it slowed down.
Boy, it sure did. Slowed down big time. We've been fighting a little supercharger problem. We got to put a different one on every run. For whatever reason, it dropped a cylinder big time, and it didn't pick it up. That's the end result.
Let's have another look at it. You'll see that John Forrest in the near lane. He knew Hoover would be tough, so John was very alert on the lights.
Yeah, he takes a nice starting line advantage, and it looks like he's going to run pretty good, but we'll notice the fuel coming out of the left side of the car, and that means the cylinder is going away. And as the cars get down toward mid-track, Tom Hoover has already begun to take the lead. We'll see a flash of flame will come out of the left side of the car again, meaning the cylinder is not firing properly. Isn't it interesting that Coyle could tell that from the starting line, Steve?
Yes, it is. Let's go to Brock.
John, they're going to remember this day as a day of upsets. I mean, all the heavy hitters have been falling like 10 pins here. Just a weird set of circumstances, and you're the next one to go. All the superstars kind of falling by the wayside.
Well, they really are, and I'm really kind of lucky because Epler had me in the points lead, went out, same as myself, but give credit to Hoover and Pop Hoover because They outran us. My car fell off for whatever reason, but we're excited, and then we're a good bunch of guys over there. So if they can win, myself and Castro, Jolly Rancher, we're all just happy for them.
Well, that's great, John. I'll tell you what, that's what makes this sport so good, is that every time two guys come to the line, you can't ever tell what's going to happen.
Yeah, that really is. And his car made a move, and it drove away from me, and my car wasn't shaking. I knew I was in trouble. I was hoping I could drive around him, but that Hoover family is a great family, and I'm glad they won.
Well, congratulations. Great sportsmanship on your part.
And the Hoovers, led by 86-year-old George, are as popular as they come within this sport. All right, here's the beautiful new entry from Larry Minor Motorsports, Cruz Pedregon in the McDonald's Oldsmobile. And quite a contrast between that operation and the one of Johnny West, Don Garland.
Yeah, Johnny West is a true competitor. He doesn't have very much budget, but he really likes to get out there and race. Got a little shop right here in Phoenix. He does his very best.
And getting some help from a former boss of his, Roland Leon. Let's go to Brock.
Well, Tom, super pass, 32. He beat the champ and beat him real good.
I'll tell you what, it was nice, and the car is running great today.
No problems at all. It just looked like a real clean pass all the way.
Actually, I thought John might smoke the tires. Who knows? I took 1% out of it. There's more there yet.
Good job. Go get it.
Tom Hoover, I think just a little bit stunned for them to be going to the Final Four. That's a little bit different than last year, of course. Everybody guiding their funny cars back in the exact tracks in which they burned out. That's what you do a burnout, is to clean the track, heat up the tires, and put some rubber down. It's a warm afternoon. Cruz Pedregon had the air conditioning on. They shut it off now. This is only Cruz's second race as a professional. He won a number of titles as a sportsman driver in the alcohol ranks. Johnny West, Chandler, Arizona, he's driven his own cars. As we said, he's driven for Roland Leon. He is just a real popular, always upbeat guy that loves this sport.
You know, he really helped me out, Steve, that time I crashed here in Phoenix. I used his shop to completely rebuild my car.
I remember that. He had stayed up all night, all week. That's what you needed. All right, Pedregon and Johnny West, the local versus the newest car on the circuit. Pedregon over in the far lane, Johnny West in the near lane. Nobody in the mid during the stage. Oh, Pedregon explodes an engine, and the body is now cattywampus on the car. Very close to the same thing that happened in the same round at Pomona just 3 weeks ago. Cruz is all right, but Big Daddy, that was spectacular.
It certainly was. That was a much bigger explosion than the one at Pomona. I was standing near both of them, both times. This one was much larger.
Well, I tell you, now you see the reason why John Force runs that big stovepipe inside the car. It's if this kind of thing happens, it vents some of that out of there without unlatching the body. This is a very expensive proposition. Watch as Cruz Pedregon, the instant he stepped on the throttle, the car didn't move 2 feet. It put the rods out the bottom, the blower off the top. That's as expensive an incident as you can have with a funny car. Let's go down to the starting line. Don Garland will try to console crew chief Bernie Federley, the man that has to put it back together.
This is the second time we've seen this happen, Bernie. It must really be frustrating.
Oh, man, I can't begin to tell you how bad it really feels. We thought we had the solution to our problems. Made some subtle little changes after first round, and apparently aggravated the problem again. Man, this is a toughie.
It is tough. I mean, there's a lot of damage here. A lot of good parts went down the drain.
Boy, I'll say, and you know, it's just a real grim deal. It's one of those things that can be prevented. We just haven't figured out how to do it yet. We thought we had some direction going. We were real confident, but apparently it told us we didn't have it solved yet.
Well, we wish you the best, Bernie.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, Johnny West won the race with a rather slow 6:18, but that sets up the Final Four. Tom Hoover versus Johnny. Hoover has the lane choice by a tremendous margin. The other half of the Final Four, Richard Hartman versus Gary Densham. You guys got to be pleased to be this far. And the lane choice will go to Densham with his 5:43, the Hartman's 5:63.
Well, John, I'm sure you're going to take it any way you can get it. You're moving into the semis, but it was a tough pass, I'm sure.
Well, last night I called up Roland. Now in between rounds, we're just faxing him my plugs. He's helping me out over the fax machine from the trailer. He's just tuning us up from there.
Well, onward and upward, any way you can get it, right?
Well, it helps. You know, it's good to do good here at home in front of so many people. We got Motorola, one of my major contractors, helping us out, and it's just kind of good to do in front of those people.
Well, it's great to see you moving on. Congratulations.
Thank you, Brock.
Absolutely.
A tune-up by fax machine. What is it all coming to? Well, here is Gene Snow's area. He faces off with Doug Herbert in the Top Fuel Final Four. That'll be coming up in a bit. Stay with us. From Phoenix, Arizona, the Motorcraft Ford Nationals. Tune-up by fax. I can't believe it.
Well, so far it's been a day of upsets in Top Fuel and Funny Car. Let's see how it goes down in Pro Stock as Jim Yates and Scott Jeffreyon come to the line, Steve. And a brand new team for Jeffreyon. Jim Yates on the way in the Pro Stock ranks. Came on real strong at the end of last year.
He sure did, but now we're on board with Scott Jeffreyon and the Dodge Daytona out of Wayne County Speed Shop. He's now the driver of this machine, has been since the opening race 3 weeks ago. And it's taking a little adapting on Scott's part. He comes out of the longer wheelbase Oldsmobile car. This is a very tricky machine to drive. It likes a perfect racetrack, something you seldom get. Jim Yates, boy, what a smile he had on his face, even though he lost in the final round to Jerry Eckman 3 weeks ago. It was the first time the man from Virginia had ever gotten that far. This is one of the tough cars in the sport right now. Jeffreyon, still a little bit of an unknown quantity in the Dodge. His reaction times, however, have been sensational, as they were when he drove for Warren Johnson. So Jeffreyon in the near lane, you're inside that car, and you see his hand resting on the shifter, the 5-speed transmission. Could be a 4-speed in this car. They go back and forth a little bit. Motors come up to about 8,000. Sidestep the clutch, and the race is underway. Jeffreyon pulling those handles. Jeffreyon is all over the racetrack and into Yates' lane. Yates wins it at a 7:43, 186 miles per hour. We talked about the short wheelbase of that Dodge. That might have bit him here, Don Garlitz.
And no telling what it was. Jeffreyon had a beautiful starting line advantage. Almost a perfect light. 404, just 4 1/1000ths off of a red light. You can see the Dodge is definitely in front of Yates, but then something begins to go wrong, and I guess it was a handling problem. He moves over toward the center line. He has to back off of the throttle. That lets Yates go ahead, and a good thing, too, because then we see the car make a violent move to the left, and it hits the cones there at the 330 mark, immediately disqualifying him and giving Yates the win.
And in our next pair, we see the Pro Stock automobile that carries the Castrol colors, and that, of course, is the man who finished number 3 in the world last year, Mr. Larry Morgan, driving his Oldsmobile. He's up against yet another Oldsmobile. This is Don Beverly, who has filled the seat vacated by Scott Jeffreyon when he moved to the Dodge team. Beverly, of course, over the last decade, really has filled his own Pro Stock car, and now has joined forces with Warren Johnson. Obviously still awaiting some kind of corporate identity. They keep it refrigerator white. Don Beverly beat Jerry Haas in round number 1 with a 7:30. Now for Larry Morgan, he qualified number 2 at a 7:24. Beat Harry Scribner in round number 1 and comes into this race with the lane choice that has selected the near lane. The Pro Stockers often like a different lane than the Nitro cars.
That's right, Steve. Sometimes the Pro Stocker just needs a real good starting line, but not near as much in the middle as the Nitro cars.
Now we see the longer wheelbase Oldsmobile of Larry Morgan goes right through that same spot that gave Scott Jeffreyon problem. But Morgan's got another problem. It's called Don Beverly. Beverly on a hole shot. 7:36 with Morgan, 7:32. 186 for Beverly, 188 for Morgan. Wow, what's the car in the far lane?
Yeah, watch Beverly take that starting line advantage. He knew he had to move hard with Morgan having the lane choice, meaning he had a better performing car. But there again, in the middle of the course, the Morgan car began to fall off just a little bit in performance, and it allowed Beverly to take the win, even though he only had a 7:36 to Morgan 7:32.
But the hole shot was over 600 of a second, and that, as you can see right here, is significant. The win, the margin, 209,000. Boy, that's pretty good Pro Stock drag racing here in round number 2. So what the heck? Let's keep on going and bring up the next pair. It's going to be a man who is on a roll. Jerry Eckman, who 3 weeks ago won the Winter Nationals, and that is the yellow car in the near lane.
Actually, a neighbor of Larry Morgan's up there in Newark, Ohio. He'll go against Frank Iaconio. Frank Iaconio, over the years, up and down in his career in this race against Eckman, who is on a streak. Eckman has lane choice, has a team backed up by Bill Orndorff's operation, and I'll tell you what, this Pontiac Trans Am right now is really hooked up, Don Garlitz.
Well, Eckman with a 7:22 to Iaconio 7:26 is like light years in Pro Stock racing. I mean, he could just leave almost any time he wants and win.
Eckman, the number 1 qualifier at 7:20. His opponent in round 1, Kenny Delco, red-lighted, a foul start for Delco. So Eckman really hasn't had an opponent yet to take him all the way to the finish line. Could be different here with Iaconio. He's a good leaver. Iaconio also leaves too soon. So Jerry Eckman, when you've got that kind of performance, you tend to scare them to death, and they gamble on the tree. So far, Delco and Iaconio have lost. Jerry Eckman, a 726, good speed, 191 miles per hour with 4-barrel carburetors and pumped gasoline. Well, I'll tell you, the pro stocks are storming. To the point, it's hard to get them stopped if the chutes don't come out.
Okay, back at the starting line. That is Bruce Allen on board the rare Morrison Lumina. He will face Warren Johnson, who just laid down a 720 in round 1 to put away Joe Lapone.
Warren Johnson right now, based on performance, I think is the man to beat. But as we have found out, Don, anything can happen on that starting line.
You're right, Steve. The cars leave so hard, 8,000 RPM, they can lift the wheels out of the lights and actually redline.
Well, Warren Johnson has won dozens of titles, but never the overall championship. That, again, is his goal. Bruce Allen, well, the same could be said for him. Now, this team really struggled in 1991, but they've tested a lot off-season. We've seen a tremendous gain in performance. If it doesn't happen here at Phoenix, it will somewhere down the road. That car and driver combination are back big time in national event competition. We'll see who leads the starting line first. It is Warren Johnson. Johnson by a 1/10 of a second. And Bruce Allen says, I'm not even in this one. 729, Johnson pulls off a bit. Big speed, though, 190 miles per hour. Well, 8 went down, only 4 will come back, and they'll pair off this way. Jerry Eckman against Warren Johnson. Eckman will have the lane choice. And in the other half of the final 4, it looks like this. Jim Yates against Don Beverly. Yates continues his performance in national event competition, but Beverly will have the lane choice. It doesn't appear to be a big factor among the pro stock cars. Well, here the brass goes on, and it's a family one with his sister and his dad and all his friends helping out Richard Hartman from Southern California. We'll be back with more competition from the Motorcraft Ford Nationals right after these words. Stay with us.
Brought to you by Slick 50. Starting your engine without it is a terrible thing to do.
So wrenches are out in Tom Hoover's pit as they bolt in a new motor, as getting ready to go against Johnny West in the 20-car Final 4 here at the Motorcraft Ford Nationals at Firebird Raceway outside Phoenix, Arizona. I'm Brock Gates along with Steve Evans and Big Daddy Don Garlett. And right now, Steve, it's the Final 4 action in Top Fuel.
A man who has been around since there's been drag racing, Gene Snow, up against the 24-year-old Wonderton, who run a business at the quickest lap time ever at 488 3 weeks ago. I'd call that a contrast, Big Daddy.
It certainly is. Gene Snow, he can do anything, anytime, but the addition of Jim Burstett to the Herbert team really has stepped up their performance.
Indeed. You know, let me take just a moment to invite you to become a member of a very special organization, the National Hot Rod Association. For $48 per year, you get 48 issues of National Dragster. You get a patch, a pin, a rule book, and more. And if you order by calling the number on your screen, you'll get a free copy of Diamond B's home video, Drag Racing 90. Why don't you call today?
All right, that is the Doug Herbert Top Fuel car. He is in that lane that generally, Big Daddy, has seen some winners.
Yes, sir. They've run good out of that far lane today, and Herbert has wisely chosen it.
Herbert and Snow, and Snow loses traction, tries to pedal it, and catch up, no can do. Good thing for Herbert, Snow had problems because Doug fell off from round 1 and round 2. A 517 at 263 miles an hour, and that's pretty weak in this day and age, but he wins it. Let's go to Don Garlett back at the starting line with the spark plug on his team, Jim Brissett.
Well, it slowed down a little, but 17, and it didn't smoke a tire.
I know, it looks a little weak on power here. I don't know, but as long as we got somebody smoking tires, we got no problem, right?
That baby's in the final.
I know it. First for him.
But not a first for Jim Brissett. He's been in many final rounds with a number of teams. He and his wife, Carol, enjoying their day.
Okay, here's the second half of the Final 4 in Top Fuel. That is Pat Austin. We already know about him, of course. That is Michael Brotherton on board the Darrell Gwynn automobile. Brotherton's been around for a while, but really, Big Daddy, this is his first crack at an absolute frontline race car.
Yeah, one that's got the funds to keep it going the whole year. He had a team a few years ago. He went 294 and some change that equaled the national record, so he's a good driver.
There you see the name of Gary Ormsby on the windscreen of Pat Austin's car. He, of course, bought the team, he and his dad, after Gary passed away tragically of cancer last year. So as Pat goes to the line to do his burnout, let's go down to Steve Evans at the other end.
What does a man have to say that's going into his first ever final round of Top Fuel?
Unbelievable. I just got to thank everybody that stuck with me through all the tough times. Tom Grove and Carol Grove, and you know, it's wonderful.
And your crew proved their worth. They changed motors. This was a tune-up on a new engine, a 517.
Ooh, well, slow down a little bit. We'll have to get back and find out what's wrong. We got to hop her up to race these guys here. We got to find a 4 somewhere.
Go deprogram that computer.
All right, so Doug Herbert pretty excited about his opportunity to get into the Final Four. He's going to find out in a moment who he will race. Austin or Brotherton. 2 will go down, 1 will come back.
Pat Austin fancies himself kind of a top gun off the starting line, and he does indeed have the reflexes of a fighter pilot. That's the most interesting comparison I think I could make, and everybody knows when you go up against Austin, you're probably going to have to spot him a couple of hundred. Oh, Austin away by a full 10. Loses control for a moment, but regains it to put a car length on Michael Brotherton. Brotherton is quicker at 5:04. Austin runs a 5:07, but had 11 hundredths of a second in the bank right off of the starting line. Let's go to Don.
I guess when you look up there at that board and you see a 5:07 in your lane and a 5:04, you're really proud of that boy, aren't you?
Well, Don, I sure am, and that's part of racing, you know, and I feel I've got the driver, and that's why he wins once in a while like that.
Thank you.
Once in a while, understatement of the event so far. So it's going to be Doug Herbert versus Pat Austin in the Top Fuel final. Let's go down to Steve Evans with the young man.
The reason we talk about Pat Austin's reaction time so much is because that's his secret weapon. Another whole shot victory. 07 beats an 04.
Hey, in this sport, you take it any way you can get it, and we'll take it that way. That's a great car you're racing there, and you got to get after it every way in performance and in the driver's seat. So just happy to be into the next round.
Lane choice doesn't seem to be a big deal. You like the near lane, and your opponent, Herbert, likes the far lane.
Yeah, I think that's probably the way it's going to end up, but we don't need to tell him that before the round, so give him something to think about anyway. But we're looking good. The Castro car is going to be in the final, and we're going to be there.
We'll be there watching.
So Pat Austin's in the finals. Does Jerry Eckman make it in Pro Stock? Well, first he's got to get by Warren Johnson in the semis. Stick with us.
Back at the Motorcraft Ford Nationals in Phoenix, Arizona, you're in the pit area of Jim Yates as they prepare that Pro Stock automobile to face Don Beverly when the Pro Stock Final Four rolls around. But it's not quite time for that yet. First of all, we've got the Nitro Burning Fuel Coupes to get through their Final Four. There is Rhonda Hartman backing up her brother, Richard. Richard is going to be up against Gary Densham, a pair of, well, let's call them, I guess, budget funny cars. Don Garlick. They're certainly not guys that are shot with diamonds.
You're certainly right, Steve. Both cars run on very limited budgets and therefore have to be very conservative in how they tune these engines. But that has not been a disadvantage at this racetrack this weekend.
No, it has not, but these two have sent some of the big trucks packing. So Hartman will be in the near lane, Densham over in the far lane, and this is kind of a pick-em as far as I'm concerned. I don't really see a favorite. Do you, Brock?
No, it's, although Densham has been pretty consistent, Hartman, as we both know, can have some problems. He has tested a few walls over the years, and let's hope he has a good, clean run this time.
So far, so good. Densham smokes the tires and gets loose. Hartman barely beats him. Richard Hartman, a 585 to a 588. It wasn't pretty, but it was the closest race of the day, and there goes Hartman out into the desert with a parachute failure. Richard seldom has an uneventful run. I'm sure he'd like to change that even more than I would. But they'll just drag him out of the sagebrush, and he'll be ready for the final round. He said, hey, I did it. Doesn't matter how. Let's go down to the starting line with Don Garland.
Well, what do you think about Richard's job there?
I am so excited. He deserves this so much.
He's in the final.
I know he's worked hard for it, too. He's worked till like midnight getting that car ready, and it's just incredible. This is great.
Well, we wish you the best.
Thanks.
She's a licensed drag racer herself, soon to be at the wheel of a blown alcohol car. Let's watch this one again. It's pretty strange, Vic.
Yeah, we see Densham take a nice hole shot, and it looks like he's on the way to another victory, and there comes the telltale smoke. The car loses traction, just out about the 330 mark. And that gives Hartman the advantage, and he begins to move ahead. But you know, Densham backpedals it and almost saves it.
Unbelievable drive by Densham, who stayed in it.
Tell you, Richard, you look more like a sprint car driver than a funny car driver there for a while.
Yeah, I had that thing skating all over the place down here.
That was one weird race, but you stayed with it. Tenacity won that one.
Yeah, my car was shaking and moving, and I stayed with it, and then it popped at about three-quarter track, and I was hoping he wouldn't catch up, and I heard him come right by past the lights, but I guess I won, so that's great.
You bet. Good drivers never give up on the quarter mile.
Without question, the closest and wildest drag race of the day. As we get ready to go to the second half of the Final Four in funny car, this is Tom Hoover coming to the line against Johnny West, a low-budget operation, but West, local favorite, and a kid that can always win a big drag race, Steve.
Talk about never give up. Now, you got to pick a favorite here. Hoover, based on his runs throughout qualifying in the first couple of rounds today, except for that engine change. That's not something they're really used to doing there. They had to do it because they found a bad bearing. Let's watch. Oh, Hoover. It's a pretty one. Tom Hoover, a masterful drive. With a new motor, they tune it up with a 534. 265 miles per hour, which tells everyone that he shut it off a little bit early, not wanting to overtax that brand new engine. Johnny West, the 612 at 178 miles an hour, but all in all, he had a pretty good day.
So, an interesting matchup. Young Richard Hartman from California has a shot at his first ever NHRA national title. Veteran Tom Hoover, well, he's won him before, but he is hungry as well. Meanwhile, back in the pits, that is the Pat Austin crew, led by his dad, Walt, getting ready to go against Doug Herbert in the Top Fuel final. So that's going to be an interesting matchup as well. Two young lions in this sport. But in the meantime, let's go down to the far end with Tom Hoover and Steve Evans.
Who of you haven't run this good since your dad was a mere 60 or so?
That's right. Imagine him up here playing at 86 years old. But today might be our day, and so far, so good.
You dedicate this to your mom, who we lost just recently?
A month ago. It's still a sore wound. I wish she's watching right now, and hope I can get together for her and do my best.
I have a feeling she is. Best of luck in a final.
So a lot at stake for Tom Hoover and his great racing family from way up north of Minnesota as we have a look inside the Oldsmobile of Don Beverly's. He's going to be going against Jim Yates in the first half of the Final Four in Pro Stocks.
Do not adjust your set. That is just the late afternoon sun shining into sparkling Firebird Lake, just adjacent to the drag strip, home of a lot of drag boat races, water ski competitions, and believe it or not, bungee jumping up a crane right into the water. Meantime, we have something a little more sensible, the Pro Stock Final Four. Don Beverly versus Jim Yates. Beverly has the lane choice. Let's see where he's going to go. No surprise for a Pro Stock car, the near lane, Brock.
Well, I'll tell you, Steve, I've got to stick with my old shirt-tail relative, Jim Yates, but Don Beverly's a real veteran in this kind of competition. He's sitting in an excellent car prepared by Warren Johnson's team, so my pal Jim's got his work cut out for him.
But these cars are so evenly matched. They run just within hundredths of a second of each other, round for round. It always boils down almost to a starting line duel. Who can leave the starting line perfect? And sometimes they don't want to stage. They do all kinds of tricks to try to psych the other driver out to get that advantage.
And the clutches and the bell housings of these cars now are not the simple one-disc model they were just a few years ago. They're very complicated, similar in design to Top Fuel and Funny Car and stages and all kinds of things done.
And most of them maintenance them every round.
That's right, something they didn't used to have to do. Listen to the RPM scream. Beautiful drag race. And the winner is Don Beverly. Kurt Johnson is crew chief. Like that one, a 733 to 190 to a 739 at 187. But Yates was off the starting line first, so he made it look a little closer than it might have been.
That's right, Steve. Beverly was late on the light by just a little. Yates took a very nice starting line advantage, but just didn't have that muscle in mid-course to keep up. Beverly's car ran quicker and faster, even though he was a little late, and that made the difference between a winner and a loser. He never really overpowered the track, just gaining a little bit every inch of the way.
Don Beverly, for I believe only the second time in his pro stock career, goes to the final round.
Steve, I tell you what, if it gets any better than this, I just don't know what it would be. You know, this Warren Johnson, Kurt Johnson, all the guys involved, Big Dave, Greg Anderson. The car is so good. We've got so much power for a change that this is our second race together. And to tell you, to go to the finals, I couldn't be any happier for myself and for them.
The wind bothered the car at all?
It did. It was really loose again. It wasn't as bad. I had lane choice this time. I'd like to keep lane choice right now. I'm going to run my ball to the Jerry Eckman here in a minute.
Go get him.
Thank you.
And that is his boss right there in the other half of the Warren Johnson operation, the frontline car, as it were, the one with all the sponsorship on it. Warren Johnson in the far lane against this man, Jerry Eckman, who is on a roll. He's on a tear, Steve, running really, really well right now.
Well, he's got the competition scared to death. Two drivers today have red-lighted against him. He really hasn't had an opponent yet worthy of his Pontiac. He holds the national record. He won at the Winter Nationals. He's got it all.
I doubt that Warren Johnson is going to be afraid of him. Warren Johnson had a 720 earlier today, and he is running good. I don't think he's afraid of Eckman in the least.
No, I agree with you there for sure. This is the stiffest competition Eckman has had all day. Oldsmobile versus Pontiac. You can see the wind shaking the Christmas tree. It is brisk out there. Good drag race. Warren Johnson having some control problems. Those cars making so much horsepower, they haven't got the clutch really to catch up with it yet. You saw Bill Orndorff as Jerry Eckman won it. Oh, just really nice. The 724, another speed over 190 miles per hour.
And more important, Steve, that 724 will give Eckman lane choice against Don Beverly. It'll be Pontiac versus Oldsmobile final in pro stock. Meanwhile, back in the pits, that is one of the Richard Hartman crew working diligently to get ready for Tom Hoover in the funny car final. Meanwhile, let's go down to Steve with Jerry Eckman.
Jerry Eckman has shredded this field, much like he did in Pomona. You're going to the final round with more than a tenth of a second advantage.
Wow, Steve, well, I don't know what to say. Looks like this Pennzoil Pontiac belongs here, doesn't it? I'm just so thrilled to be in the final for the second time, and I just got to give credit to my team and my sponsors.
Well, you got a lane choice. You've got everything.
Well, the race ain't over yet, and I've seen it happen, and you have too. So we'll count our blessings after we win.
All right, good luck to you, bud.
Oh, there's a man looking for a victory, and here's a team looking for a victory. That's Tom Hoover's operation, and that's his dad, George, in there, working on the rod caps. What do you think, George? You going to win it?
Here in Phoenix, only 3 races remain in the Motorcraft Ford Nationals, the Pro Finals, and that is 24-year-old Doug Herbert just walking away from his crew as they ready his top fuel. They're going to face 27-year-old Pat Austin. So it's a youthful top fuel final. A couple of veterans, though, in pro stock underway right now. Jerry Eckman smokes the tire, then says Don Beverly to get him hot and ready. And Don Garlitz, can Eckman be stopped?
Well, in my opinion, I don't think so. But, you know, he can make a mistake, and he has been known to red light on occasion, and it can happen at this particular facility.
And Don Beverly may have more power because between rounds, they took the Warren Johnson motor out and put it into Beverly's car. Just moments ago, I chatted with both drivers.
You know it, I know it. You're a definite underdog. What do you do against Jerry Eckman?
Well, I tell you what, we're trying to add a little more horsepower here right now. Jerry's got a little bit of advantage on us, and these guys are working, putting us in a little more power and try to do my job and try to win us a race. That's all we're going to do.
What's going through your mind as you get ready to race your opponent?
Not a lot. I know they're down there changing engines, and I'm just not going to worry about what they're doing. I got to worry about what we're doing. We're getting our car prepared, and it's been working good all day, and that's all I'm going to go in with that thought in my mind that my car is prepared well.
Okay, you've heard from both the combatants. All we can do now is watch for the final results. Jerry Eckman in the lane he wants to be. Don Beverly over on the far side where he'd rather actually not be. But he does have the boss's motor now. Let's see. Pro Stock final, the Motorcraft Ford National. Beverly out first, but just like Warren Johnson the round before, too much power. His car is all over the racetrack. Jerry Eckman has won his second NHRA national event in a row with a 726, 190. Don?
I'm on the line here with Bill Orndorff, and he is one happy camper. 726. You kept that thing running good all day long, Bill.
I tell you, I'm pretty proud. I'm proud of Jerry. I'm proud of my team, and I'm just tickled pink. I've got my sister and my niece here from California, and it's just pretty special.
Well, that's 2 in a row.
Yep, and we're planning on some more. Thank you very much, Don.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Brock?
Right, Don, as we take another look at what was right off the line, it looked like Don Beverly's race. He had a great launch, good reaction time, but right about here we see Jerry Eckman in that Pontiac begin to come on real strong, and then it came upon old Don Beverly to just start to wobble there. He goes a little bit toward the center line, corrects, comes out of the throttle for an instant, and that's the end of the race. Jerry Eckman on to his second straight victory.
Jerry Eckman, tell us about that race. I think you saw that white car.
Yeah, I saw that white car all the way through low gear. He was out on me, and these guys have been taking shots at me, and, you know, that's what happens when you're running well, and I knew one of them was bound to get lucky, and he got out on me pretty good, but this Pennzoil Pontiac with Stratford Motor Products helping out really put it on in the middle of the track, and I'm so thrilled to be here at the finish line as a winner.
2 wins in a row and a big lead in the Winston point.
Yeah, that's great, and I got to give credit to my crew.
Okay, let's go back up to Brock Yates.
Well, Steve, that was a great drag race for the first 8 mile until Don Beverly's Oldsmobile came unglued under a lot of horsepower as the 2 old competitors congratulate each other. We're hearing the rattle of nitro-powered 20-car motors as 20-car finals come up, and Don Garlett, the veteran Tom Hoover, you raced against him over the years on and off. He's a good one. He can win this thing.
Yes, he is. He comes into this round with a definite performance advantage.
Panic on the Hartman team. The car did not do a decent burnout. Richard is now back into the water, going to try to do a short one. He cannot inconvenience Tom Hoover. He cannot cause Hoover's car to overheat. A burn down in racers' parlance. There's a nice shorty. Earlier I talked to both of these drivers. Richard, what's the plan here? You're in tough and you know it.
Yeah, we're in tough. I'm not sure what he ran, but we had a mismatched set of heads on because we're afraid to hurt the engine, and we're throwing another head on, so the engine will be even out, and we should be back to our 543 in the first round deal.
Hoove, this one can be yours if you don't screw up.
That's the name of the game, Steve. Today so far, things are going our way, and if we don't beat ourselves or make a big bad mistake, I think we can do it.
We're about to find out. 50-year-old Tom Hoover up against a kid less than half his age, Richard Hartman. But as Hoover and the others put it that are into their 50s now, old age and treachery will overcome youth and exuberance anytime. We're about to find out. Hoover in the far lane, Hartman in the near lane. Hoover has earned his way into the final. Hartman's had a lot of luck. And Hartman's luck comes to an end. Can he keep it off the wall? Yes. All the paint is still on the Insanity car. Back at the starting line, the Hoover crew deservedly patting each other on the back, receiving congratulations. Tom Hoover has won it at a 5:27, 263 miles an hour. Don Garlett with George.
5:27. He's won another one for you, George.
Don't say that, son of ours, because it takes a whole crew to win one of these things. Right?
But he did his job right every time today, George.
And this would be a glorious day for me if my wife was here.
Congratulations. Brock?
Well, Don, a poignant moment. Mount Hoover having died just less than a month ago and not being here, of course, to watch your son Tom go on to victory here at the Motorcraft Ford Nationals after Richard Hartman gets all over the racetrack at half track. I'll tell you what, Big Daddy, we had fire, we had smoke. The only thing he didn't do is blow the body off that thing.
Well, you know, Richard Hartman's love affair with the wall almost came true one more time, but at the very last moment he lifted, he didn't hurt the car, and Tom Hoover went on to another victory. Steve?
This prize money comes in handy to a team like yours. You're not overfunded.
No, we're not, and we're had a little bad luck at Pomona here. We hurt a car, and to come back now and win this one, and in moderate times, as Brooks said, here we go.
Okay, let's go back to Brock.
Well, Steve, the first victory for that man since 1979. There'll be some celebrations in the Hoover pits tonight. In the meantime, we've got one more race left. 2 young lions. That's Pat Austin getting ready to go in Top Fuel. He will face Doug Herbert.
Of the 1 million horsepower entered here at the NHRA Motorcraft Ford Nationals, only 10,000 remains in competition. 5 each for Doug Herbert and Pat Austin. Austin won as recently as the Winston final last October to conclude the 91 season. Doug Herbert has never won an event nor even been in the final round. He is super pumped up. Austin, of course, Brockgate has the experience on his side, really.
Well, Steve, as well know, Pat Austin ranks second only to Bob Glidden in all-time NHRA championship victories. But I don't think that intimidates Doug Herbert. Earlier, Steve talked to them both.
Doug, you're in tough, buddy. Pat Austin is plenty mean. How are you going to handle this race? What are you going to have to do?
Well, I don't know what to say. We got a quicker car than he does, but he seems to be a little bit more consistent, so we're going to have to get after it a little bit. I think we can do it.
Doug Herbert has a fast car. He's proven that. How do you approach this race with a first-time finalist like him?
You approach it just like that. He has a fast car, and he's a good driver, and Doug's been on a hot streak. If you watch his car at Pomona, he's right there, and his car is really running good. They slowed down a little bit that time, but we ain't even looking at that. We're looking past that, and he's going to run a 4-second run, and that's exactly how we're going to approach it.
So, young Pat Austin and the Austin crew not taking Doug Herbert lightly by any means, Big Daddy, and I think they're right.
Well, they got a little bit of advantage right in the bank with Pat Austin. He almost gets everybody out of the gate for a starting line advantage. So that really gives the team confidence when they're setting their clutch and you know, the different things they have to do that might cause them to spin the tire.
Doug Herbert, very cool. He was the last to stage. He breaks right up the starting line. Something happens to Herbert. Pat Austin. Austin at a 506, 286 miles an hour. He was vulnerable had Herbert not broken. Let's go back to the starting line. Don Garlits with Papa Wall.
I take my hat off to you. You didn't hop it up. You didn't do anything funny. You just made your nice, normal run, and that's what it took.
Well, Don, you know that probably better than any of us. And sometimes you've got to control yourself and look at what it's really going to take to win the race. And I'm really proud of my crew. I mean, Dana and Mike and Dickie and Brad and all the guys, they're really professionals, and it's showing.
Well, you did a nice job.
And let's go to the young man who caps a great afternoon.
Yeah, two-time winner today. First alcohol-free car, and now the pro category of Top Fuel. I thought maybe he had a 4-second run in it. Not quite.
Well, not quite, but you just got to do what it takes to win, and that's what we did. I'm sure the guys would have liked it to run a little better, but obviously they planned to run a 506, and that's what it did. So as long as you get there first, and with the, with the help of the sponsors, Castro, Oldsmobile, Red Wing Shoes, and Dynomax, we're going to the top, baby.
You probably read this track better than anybody today. You always knew which was the best lane, and you selected it throughout the competition.
I think that comes with the experience of the guys. You know, my dad and the guys work together, and they've been working together real well, and I think it's shown our performance. And being a new team, I think it's very important to go out and do good earlier. Things can fall apart, and we're doing good so far.
Thanks a lot.
Hey, thank you.
So Kenny Bernstein won round 1 in Pomona. Now Pat Austin knocks him out in round 2. Brock?
And Steve, Doug Herbert was knocked out with a $1 part on the throttle linkage. I'm Brock Yates for Steve Evans and Big Daddy Don Garlits. Thanks for joining us.
The executive producer for American Sports Cavalcade is Harvey M. Palish. Produced and directed by John B. Mullen. Promotional consideration provided for and a fee paid by this special offer from
They take it to the limit and beyond. They force body and machine to the extremes of endurance. Often unpredictable, always spectacular. That's the reason Diamond P Sports has once again opened its action-packed archives to produce a dramatic new video entitled And They Walked Away Too. The blazing inferno of high-performance gone awry. Open-wheel sprint cars locked in death-defying ballets. The heart-stopping drama of unbelievable two-wheel disasters. Awesome displays of man and metal turned to mayhem. To get your copy of And They Walked Away Too, send $24.95 plus $4 shipping and handling to the address on your screen. Or better yet, call 1-800-767-9700. Visa and MasterCard accepted, no CODs. That's 1-800-767-9700. Call today.
The American Sports Cavalcade is a presentation of Diamond P Sports.